Have you ever checked into a hotel room and felt like you weren't alone? That strange feeling, that sixth sense, that tells you something is just off. Well, what I am about to tell you is a story that might make you think twice before you swipe that keycard. It's the tale of room 428 and a guest who vanished into thin air. Our story begins with a weary traveler. Let's call him Alex. He'd been on the road for days, driving through desolate highways, a lonely figure chasing the horizon. The sun had long set, replaced by a blanket of stars in a dark, empty sky. Exhausted, he saw the faint, buzzing glow of a neon sign in the distance. It was an old classic-looking hotel, the kind you see in movies, standing like a forgotten sentinel by the side of the road. For Alex, it was a sanctuary. He pulled into the nearly empty parking lot, the crunch of gravel under his tires the only sound in the dead of night. The lobby was vintage, to put it politely. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, dust, and something else, something vaguely floral. Behind the long, polished counter stood an old man, his face a road map of wrinkles, who seemed as much a part of the hotel as the faded wallpaper. He slid a tarnished brass key across the counter. "Room 428, he rasped, his voice like dry leaves rustling. "End of the hall, top floor." Alex thanked him, took the key, and trudged up the grand, creaking staircase. The hotel was eerily quiet. Each step echoed in the cavernous space. He finally reached the fourth floor and found room 428 at the very end of a long, dimly lit corridor. The air up here felt colder, heavier. As he turned the key in the lock, the door swung open with a groan. The first thing that hit him wasn't the sight of the room, but the smell. It was an overwhelming, cloying wave of perfume. Not a light, pleasant scent, but a heavy, old-fashioned floral fragrance, like a bottle had been shattered on the carpet. It was so strong, it almost made his eyes water. He wrinkled his nose. It was strange, but he was too tired to care. He just wanted to sleep. The room itself was simple. A bed, a small desk, a vintage armchair in the corner. It looked clean, untouched. He tossed his bag on the floor, kicked off his shoes, and opened the window, hoping to air the place out. The cool night air helped, but it couldn't quite banish the potent scent of perfume. It seemed to cling to the curtains, the bedspread, the very air itself. Shrugging it off as an overzealous housekeeper, Alex collapsed onto the bed and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window, stirring him from his slumber. The first thing he noticed, the smell. It was still there, as strong as ever. It had woven itself into his dreams, a constant, perfumed presence. It was really starting to bother him. It was unnatural for a scent to linger so intensely. He got dressed, packed his bag, and headed down to the front desk to check out. The same old man was there, polishing a glass with a slow, deliberate motion. "Morning," Alex said, placing the key on the counter. Everything was fine, but you might want to have housekeeping look at room 428. There is an incredibly strong smell of perfume in there. It's a bit much." The old man stopped polishing. He slowly looked up from his glass, his eyes fixing on Alex with a strange, unnerving intensity. He didn't say anything for a long moment. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "Room 428, he repeated, as if the words were foreign. "That's impossible." Alex was confused. "What do you mean, impossible?" "I just slept there, key and all." He gestured to the brass key on the counter. The old man shook his head slowly, a deep frown creasing his forehead. "No, sir. You must be mistaken. No one has stayed in room 428 for years. We don't book it out. Not since the incident." Now Alex was starting to feel a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "The incident? What are you talking about?" "I have the receipt. I checked in last night. You gave me the key." A flicker of something fear, confusion, crossed the old man's face. He looked at the key, then back at Alex. Let's just go up and see," he said, his voice trembling slightly. He grabbed a set of master keys from a hook behind the desk and led the way, his steps much quicker now. They walked up the stairs in silence, the old man's unease radiating like a cold aura. When they reached the door to room 428, the clerk hesitated before inserting his master key. The door swung open. Alex's jaw dropped. The room was pristine, untouched. The bed was perfectly made, not a single wrinkle on the coverlet. The pillows were plumped and centered. The window he had opened was shut tight, the latch firmly in place. His bag was gone. His shoes were gone. There was no indentation on the bed where he had slept, no sign that anyone had been there at all. It was as if he had never set foot inside. "See," the old man whispered, his voice shaky, empty, just like it's been for the last 50 years. But Alex pointed a trembling finger into the room. "No," he said, his own voice barely audible. "Smell that." The old man took a hesitant step inside and sniffed the air. His face went pale. The room was filled with that same overpowering, cloying scent of floral perfume. It was undeniable. It hung in the air, a silent, fragrant ghost. The old man stumbled back into the hallway, his hand over his heart. "It's her," he stammered. "She's still here." He then told Alex the story. 50 years ago, a young woman had been staying in room 428. She was waiting for her lover, who was supposed to meet her at the hotel so they could run away together. She waited 4 days, pacing the room, dabbing her favorite perfume on her wrists, her neck constantly refreshing the scent in anticipation of his arrival. But he never came. Heartbroken and abandoned, she was found in that very room. The official story was that she had simply packed her bags and left, but the staff knew better. She had vanished, leaving behind only one thing: the lingering, heartbreaking scent of her favorite perfume. Ever since, no matter how many times they aired out the room, deep-cleaned the carpets, or even repainted the walls, the scent would always return. Sometimes faint, sometimes, like today, overwhelmingly strong. Guests who were accidentally booked into the room would report strange occurrences, the feeling of being watched, the sound of soft weeping, and always that powerful, sad perfume. Alex stood there, frozen in the hallway, the story washing over him in a cold wave. He had slept in a ghost's room. He had smelled her perfume, the scent of her eternal, lonely vigil. Had she been there with him all night, a spectral roommate watching him sleep? He looked back into the room, which now seemed so much more sinister. Where was his bag? His belongings? It was as if the room itself, or its phantom occupant, had erased any trace of his existence. He checked his pockets, his wallet, his car keys. They were gone too. He had no receipt, no proof he had ever even been a guest. He was a stranger, a trespasser, in a story that wasn't his. The old clerk just stared at him with wide, pitying eyes. There was nothing he could do. To the rest of the world, Alex had never checked in. Room 428 was empty. It had always been empty. Alex walked out of that hotel in a daze, leaving his car, his belongings, everything behind. He just walked away. Down that long, lonely highway, the cloying scent of old perfume clinging to his clothes, a ghostly souvenir from a night he could never prove and could never forget. So if you ever find yourself in an old hotel and you walk into a room filled with an unexplainable, powerful fragrance, maybe just turn around. Don't ask questions. Just leave. Because you might be an unwelcome guest in someone else's eternal wait, and they might not want you to leave with any proof you were ever there. Thanks for watching. If you have a spooky hotel story of your own, drop in the comments below. I'd love to read it. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe out there. Have you ever caught a glimpse of something in a mirror, just out of the corner of your eye, that wasn't really there? A shadow that moves when you don't. Today, we're rechecking into an old hotel where a single hallway mirror has been the source of countless chilling tales. Guests report seeing reflections that seem to have a life of their own. Let's pull back the curtain and see what secrets this mirror holds. The story begins at the Grand Crest Hotel, a place steeped in history and, as it turns out, mystery. Built in the late 19th century, this hotel has seen its share of drama, romance, and tragedy. But it's not the grand ballroom or the opulent suites that draw paranormal enthusiasts. It's a seemingly ordinary, full-length mirror hanging at the end of a long, dimly lit corridor on the third floor. For decades, this mirror has been more than just a piece of decor. It's been a window into something else. The earliest documented reports date back to the 1950s. A traveling salesman, checking in for the night, was walking down the hallway when he stopped to adjust his tie in the mirror. He wrote in a letter to his wife that as he looked at his reflection, he saw another figure, a woman in a vintage white dress standing just behind his shoulder. Thinking it was another guest, he turned around. The hallway was completely empty. When he looked back at the mirror, she was gone. He was so shaken that he requested a room on a different floor for the rest of his stay. This wasn't an isolated incident. Over the years, the hotel's front desk started collecting a strange file of similar complaints. A honeymooning couple in the 70s reported seeing their reflections turn and smile at them, even though their own faces were neutral. A family on vacation said their young daughter started crying, pointing at the mirror and saying the sad man is watching. When they looked, they saw nothing but their own startled reflections. The most common report, however, is the feeling, an overwhelming, undeniable sensation of being watched. People who knew nothing of the mirror's reputation would walk down that hallway and feel a prickle on the back of their neck. Their pace would quicken as they passed the mirror, an instinctual urge to get away from it as fast as possible. Some even claimed to hear faint whispering as they passed, whereas they couldn't quite make out, like a radio tuned between stations. So what's the story behind this mirror? Hotel staff, past and present, have their theories, mostly passed down through whispers and late-night conversations. The most popular legend revolves around a woman named Eleanor Vance, who stayed at the hotel in the 1920s. She was a beautiful socialite, known for her vanity and her love of lavish parties. The story goes that she was deeply in love with a man who ultimately betrayed her, leaving her for another woman. Heartbroken, Eleanor spent her final days in her room, staring at her own reflection in that very mirror. Consumed by grief and despair, the legend claims her spirit became trapped within the glass, forever looking for the face of a lost love, or perhaps just watching others live the life she lost. Another, darker tale suggests the mirror wasn't original to the hotel. It was supposedly acquired from an estate sale of a mysterious collector who dealt in occult artifacts. This theory suggests the mirror itself as a portal, or a scrying glass, used in rituals long ago. The figures people see are not ghosts of the hotel, but something else, entirely in eddies from another plane of existence, peering through the glass, just as we peer in. This might explain the variety of apparitions reported. The woman in white, the sad man, shadowy figures, and even reflections that don't match the person standing in front of them. By the early 2000s, the incidents had become so frequent and unsettling that the hotel management made a decision. They couldn't simply remove the mirror. It was an antique, built into the wall, and removing it would cause significant damage. Plus, its reputation was, strangely, starting to attract a new kind of guest ghost, hunters and thrill seekers. So, they did the next best thing. They covered it. A heavy, dark red velvet curtain was hung over the mirror, fastened securely to the wall. You'd think that would be the end of the story, right? But it wasn't. The curtain seemed to make things worse. Guests now walk down that hallway and report feeling an even more intense sense of being watched. It's as if whatever is in the mirror knows it's being hidden, and it doesn't like it. Some have reported seeing the curtain move, as if a hand were pushing against it from the other side. Others have sworn they've seen a faint light, glowing from behind the fabric. One of the most terrifying stories from the post-curtain era comes from a maintenance worker. He was called to replace a light bulb in the hallway late one night. As he worked on a ladder near the covered mirror, he heard a distinct tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the wall, right behind the curtain. He froze, listening. The tapping grew more insistent. On a dare, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, he reached out and pulled back a tiny corner of the curtain. He said what he saw wasn't a reflection. It was a pair of eyes, dark and wide, staring directly at him from the pitch blackness of the mirror's surface. He dropped the curtain and practically fell off his ladder, scrambling away and refusing ever to work on that floor alone again. So, what is it about this mirror? Is it the tormented spirit of Eleanor Vance? forever trapped in her own reflection? Is it a portal to another dimension? A window that should never have been opened? Or is it simply a case of mass hysteria, fueled by old stories in a spooky atmosphere? Maybe the strange reflections are just tricks of the light in a dimly lit hallway, and the feeling of being watched is our own primal fear of the unknown. But the sheer number of reports, spanning nearly a century from people of all walks of life, makes you wonder. The hotel, which we're not naming out of respect for their privacy, still stands. The curtain still hangs over the mirror at the end of the third-floor hallway. The staff are tight-lipped about it now, but if you stay there, and you happen to walk down that corridor late at night, you might just feel it, that cold spot in the air, that prickle on your neck, the unshakable feeling that even with the curtain drawn, something is on the other side, watching, waiting, and maybe, just maybe, hoping you'll be brave enough to take a peek. What do you think's going on with the mirror at the Grand Crest Hotel? Let me know your theories down in the comments. Have you ever had a creepy experience with a mirror? I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into the unexplained, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more strange tales. Stay curious, and maybe avoid old mirrors in dark hallways. See you next time. Have you ever been tucked away in a hotel room, late at night, when you hear a sound that just doesn't belong? A sound that sends a little shiver down your spine. Tonight, we're checking into a hotel where such an experience is not just possible, but almost expected. This isn't your typical luxury stay. It's a place with a permanent resident, one who is never officially checked out. Welcome to the story of the child who knocks. Imagine this. It's past midnight. The city outside has finally quieted down, and the only sound is the low hum of the air conditioner in your room. You're just drifting off to sleep, feeling safe and secure, when you hear it. Tap, tap, a soft, gentle knocking on your hotel room door. It's not aggressive or frantic, just a polite little rap, almost hesitant. You sit up, instantly awake. Who could be knocking at this hour? Room service. You didn't order anything. Hotel? Staff, they'd usually call first. Maybe it's a neighbor who's got the wrong room. You swing your legs out of bed, your heart beating a little faster now. You walk over to the door, peek through the peephole, and see nothing. The hallway is empty, dimly lit, and eerily silent. You hesitate for a moment, then unlock the door and pull it open. Just a crack. Still nothing. The long corridor stretches out in both directions, silent and deserted. You're about to close the door, brushing it off as your imagination, when you hear it. A soft, airy giggle. It sounds like a child's laughter, echoing faintly from down the hall. It's not a scary laugh, more playful, mischievous. You poke your head out, looking left and right. The hallway remains empty. The laughter fades, leaving you standing there in the silence, with goosebumps prickling your skin. This isn't a one-time occurrence. For years, guests at this particular hotel have reported the very same experience. It always happens late at night. The gentle knocking, the empty peephole, and the ghostly sound of a child's laughter drifting through the air. Some guests are terrified, demanding a room change immediately. Others are intrigued, staying up night after night, hoping to hear the knock again. So, who is this mysterious visitor? Well, if you ask the long-serving members of the hotel staff, ones who have seen and heard it all, they'll tell you a story that dates back decades, to a time when this grand hotel was something very different, long before it became the towering establishment it is today. The original building on this site was a residence, a large, stately home that belonged to a wealthy family. This family had a young child, a little boy who was full of life and energy. His favorite thing in the world was playing games, especially hide-and-seek. The long, winding corridors of his home were his personal playground. He'd spend hours running up and down, his joyful laughter bouncing off the walls as he darted in and out of rooms, hiding from his parents or his nanny. His favorite game, however, was a little prank he loved to play. He would sneak up to a closed door, knock softly, and then quickly run and hide around the nearest corner. He'd stifle his giggles as he watched the door open to an empty hallway, delighting in the confused look on the person's face. It was his signature trick, a harmless bit of fun that brought him immense joy. The story takes a sad turn, as these stories often do. The family's time in the house came to an unexpected and tragic end. The details are fuzzy, lost to time and some say there was a sudden illness. Others whisper of an accident within the home. Whatever the cause, the family was gone, and the house stood empty for years. The halls no longer filled with the sound of a child's laughter. Eventually, the property was sold and redeveloped. The grand old house was incorporated into the structure of a new, modern hotel. Walls were torn down. New ones were built. But the original footprint, the very bones of the child's playground, remained. And it seems, so did the child himself. The staff believe that the spirit of this little boy, forever attached to his beloved home, continues to play his favorite game. He doesn't mean any harm. He's not a malevolent force trying to scare people. He's just a child, eternally playing in the hallways that were once his entire world. The knocking isn't a warning. It's an invitation. An invitation to play. Guests who have encountered the knocking child describe the experience in surprisingly similar ways. They talk about the distinct gentleness of the knock. It's never loud or demanding. One guest, a business traveler named Mark, shared his story on a travel forum. He wrote, "I was working late on my laptop around 1 a.m. when I heard 3 soft taps on the door. It was so quiet I almost missed it. I looked through the peephole and the hall was completely empty. As I was turning away, I heard what sounded like a little kid giggling. It wasn't scary. It was sweet. It felt like someone was playing a prank on me. I actually smiled." Another couple on their honeymoon reported hearing the knock on 3 consecutive nights, always around the same time. The first night, they were startled. The second night, they were curious. By the third night, the husband whispered, "Come in," after the knock, and they both swore they heard the soft laughter right outside their door before it faded away. They said it became a memorable, if spooky, part of their trip. The hotel management, for their part, officially has a no-comment policy on the paranormal activities. Publicly, they dismiss the stories as overactive imaginations or the building's old pipes. But privately, the staff know better. They've learned to live with their unseen guest. New employees are often warned about the late-night knocks during their training, told not to be alarmed. The cleaning crew will sometimes report finding small handprints on freshly polished surfaces in the hallways, or hearing the faint pitter-patter of running feet when no one is there. Some employees even leave out small toys or candies in a discreet corner of one of the main corridors, a little offering for their spectral friend. They say that on the nights they do this, the knocking seems to subside, as if the child is content with his new playthings. This story makes you wonder, doesn't it? About the energy that can linger in a place. A building can change. Its purpose can be completely transformed, but the memories and emotions embedded in its walls can persist. In T's case, the pure, innocent joy of a child at play has echoed through the decades, creating a legend that is both chilling and strangely heartwarming. The child who knocks is a reminder that not all ghost stories are about terror and dread. Some are about echoes of the past, about moments of life and happiness that were so strong they simply refuse to fade away. The spirit isn't trapped in a state of torment. He's trapped in a moment of pure, unadulterated fun. So, if you ever find yourself in a hotel late at night and you hear that soft, gentle tap on your door, before you get scared, take a moment, peek through the peephole, and even if you see nothing, listen closely. You might just hear the faint, happy laughter of a child who just wants to play one more game of hide. It's a chilling thought, but also a strangely beautiful one. The game never has to end. What do you think? Is it a comforting thought or a terrifying one? Let me know in the comments below. Have you ever had a strange experience in a hotel? I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for joining me on this dive into the unexplained. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more spooky tales. Stay curious and maybe sleep with one eye open. See you next time. Have you ever stayed in an old hotel? One of those grand, historic places where every creak of the floorboards seems to tell a story. You know the kind I'm talking about. Ornate wallpaper, antique furniture, and a certain atmosphere. A feeling that you're not just a guest, but a visitor in a place with a long, layered past. Well, today's story takes us to one such place. The Grand Alistair Hotel. From the outside, The Alistair is a picture of timeless elevator. Built in the late 1800s, its stone forkade and towering spires have watched over the city for more than a century. It's famous for its luxurious suites, its five-star restaurant, and a history filled with famous guests, glamorous parties, and, of course, a few lingering secrets. But what most brochures won't tell you about is a peculiar quirk of its central elevator grand, cage-like contraption of wrought iron and polished brass. They call it Old Bessie. And Old Bessie has a mind of her own. For decades, staff and guests have whispered stories about the hotel's main elevator. Most of the time, it works perfectly, ferrying people up and down its 13 floors with a gentle hum and a satisfying clunk as it arrives. But every so often, completely at random, it does something unexpected. It stops on a floor that doesn't exist. Let me explain. The hotel directory next to the elevator buttons clearly lists floors 1 through 13. There's no basement level for guests, no secret penthouse. It's a straightforward layout. Yet, sometimes, the elevator will shudder to a halt. The antique floor indicator will creak, and the needle will point to a blank space between the 7th and 8th floors. The bell will ding softly, and the ornate iron doors will slide open. What lies beyond is not a guest floor. It's a hallway, but not like any other in the Alistair. The plush red carpet of the hotel is gone, replaced by worn, wooden floorboards. The warm, golden light from the sconces is absent, leaving the corridor shrouded in a dim, gray twilight that seems to emanate from nowhere. The air is still and heavy, and a noticeable chill hangs in the air, the kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand up. The wallpaper is faded and peeling, revealing dark, water-stained plaster underneath. At the far end of the hallway, a single, dark wooden door stands closed. Over the years, a handful of curious or distracted guests have made the mistake of stepping out. The moment their feet touch the wooden floor, they describe an overwhelming sense of disorientation. It's as if the world has tilted on its axis. The familiar sounds of the hotel, the distant chatter from the lobby, the faint clinking of glasses from the bar vanish completely. All that remains is a profound, ringing silence. One of the most well-documented accounts comes from a businessman named Robert, who was staying at the hotel in the 1980s. He was heading up to his room on the 9th floor after a long day of meetings. He was tired, preoccupied, and barely noticed when the elevator stopped unexpectedly. The doors opened, and without looking up from his briefcase, he stepped out. He took 2 steps before the sudden, intense cold hit him. He looked up, confused. This wasn't the 9th floor. He saw the dim, unfamiliar hallway stretching before him. A wave of unease washed over him, a primal feeling that he was somewhere he shouldn't be. He turned back towards the elevator, ready to jump back in, but it was too late. The brass gates were already sliding shut with a quiet, final click, leaving him alone in the chilling silence of the non-existent hallway. Panic set in. He lunged for the elevator call button, but there wasn't one. The wall where it should have been was bare, covered in the same peeling wallpaper. He was trapped, ached out, his voice sounding small and muffled in the dead air. No response. His heart pounded in his chest as his eyes were drawn to the single door at the end of the hall. It felt like it was watching him. He didn't want to go near it, but what other choice did he have? He slowly walked down the corridor, his footsteps echoing unnaturally on the wooden planks. The cold intensified with every step. When he finally reached the door, he hesitated. The doorknob was old, made of tarnished brass, and cold to the touch. Taking a deep breath, he turned it. It was locked. A rattled it, pushed against the heavy wood, but it wouldn't budge. Defeated, he turned back, a sense of hopelessness creeping in. And that's when he saw it. Standing in the middle of the hallway, where he had just been, was the faint, shimmering outline of a woman in an old-fashioned dress. He couldn't make out her features, but he could feel her gaze on him, a gaze filled with a deep, sorrowful longing. He froze, unable to scream, unable to move. The figure didn't approach. It simply stood there, a silent, spectral sentinel. Robert, in a surge of adrenaline-fueled terror, scrambled back towards where the elevator had been, pressing his hands against the flat, empty wall, praying for it to open. He closed his eyes, not wanting to see the apparition anymore. He doesn't know how long he stood there. It could have been seconds or minutes, but suddenly he heard a familiar, welcome sound. The gentle ding of the elevator bell. He snapped his eyes open. The iron gates were sliding open again. The hallway behind him was empty. The spectral woman was gone. Without a second thought, he dove back into the safety of the elevator car. As the doors closed, he saw the dim hallway disappear, replaced by the familiar interior of the hotel as the elevator continued its journey up to the 9th floor. As if nothing had happened, Robert checked out of the hotel that same night and never returned. His story, however, became part of the Alistair's legend. Hotel staff have their own theories. Some believe the hallway is a remnant of the hotel's original structure, a section that was sealed off during a renovation a century ago. They say a young woman tragically lost her life on that floor and her spirit remains forever waiting in the hallway that time forgot. When the elevator stops, it's because she's lonely, hoping for a visitor. Others have a more chilling theory. They say the hallway isn't a place at all, but a tier in reality, a brief glimpse into another dimension or a different time. They warn that the longer you stay, the harder it is to get back. The elevator doors, they say, don't close on their own. The spirit in the hall closes them, hoping to keep you with her. To this day, Old Bessie continues its unpredictable stops. The hotel management officially denies the existence of any phantom floor, dismissing it as an electrical glitch or an overactive imagination fueled by the hotel's historic charm. But for those who have seen the dim, cold hallway, for those who have felt that disorienting shift in reality, it's much more than a glitch. It's a chilling reminder that in places steeped in history, not all floors are listed on the directory, and sometimes it's best to stay inside the elevator, no matter what you see when the doors open. So, next time you're in a historic hotel and the elevator shutters to a stop on a floor you want to recognize, maybe just keep your hands and feet inside the car. You never know who or what might be waiting for you on the other side. Thanks for joining me on this spooky journey. If you have any similar stories or experiences, share them in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Tales from the Shadows. Stay curious and stay safe.